Have you ever sat in your favorite chair late in the evening, wondering what happened to the child you raised with so much love? Maybe they used to run into your arms, tell you everything about their day, lean on you when life got rough. And now? They barely call unless they need something. And when they do, you're left feeling smaller than you were before the call started. You're not alone. So many parents in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, find themselves walking on eggshells around their own adult children. You give your time, your heart, your home, even your peace, and still, you end up drained. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I feel worse after every visit or phone call? Or, why do I feel like a stranger in my own home? It might not just be in your head. Some adult children carry patterns that are deeply harmful. When those patterns are rooted in emotional entitlement, manipulation, or a lack of empathy, the situation becomes far more serious. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about what happens when a self-centered adult child is left alone. No one watching, no one setting limits, no one holding their behavior accountable. It's in those quiet moments, away from your eyes, that their true patterns begin to surface. Let's begin with the first thing they often do, something you may have already noticed. When a deeply self-focused adult child is alone, they don't find peace. They don't use that time to reflect, rest, or grow. Instead, many rush straight into social media, driven by a constant need for attention. Not connection, attention. They scroll endlessly, liking, commenting, posting, messaging, anything that gives them a reaction. A like becomes a form of fuel. A reply to a message becomes proof that someone still finds them charming, desirable, important. It doesn't matter who it is, a stranger, an old flame, even someone else's partner. What matters is the feeling of being seen. They chase that validation like a thirst that never goes away. And this can be dangerous, especially if they're in a relationship, or even worse, if they're under your roof. You may think they're quietly relaxing in their room, but behind closed doors, they may be pushing boundaries with others online, telling half-truths, or spinning stories to make themselves the center of someone else's world for a few hours. The problem isn't just that they're addicted to being admired, it's that admiration replaces genuine connection. They don't build real relationships on social media, they build illusions. And when those illusions collapse, they come back to you, exhausted, bitter, empty. Then, they expect you to fix it. You become the emotional janitor, cleaning up after a mess you didn't even know existed. But that's not where it ends. When left alone, a deeply self-centered adult child may also begin crossing boundaries you've worked so hard to protect. Not only emotionally, but physically as well. They may go through drawers, pick up your phone, read your journals, or open your emails. When confronted, they'll often brush it off by saying they were just curious or looking for something. But deep down, you feel the violation clearly, because it crosses a line that should never be crossed. It goes deeper than curiosity. It's about control. By knowing what you write, who you talk to, or how you feel, they get a sense of power. They want to stay one step ahead, so they can twist things, manipulate conversations, or guilt you when they don't get their way. If they see you've written in a journal that you're feeling overwhelmed, they may bring it up later, not with care, but as ammunition. See, you can't handle anything without me. And suddenly, the very thing you wrote to help process your emotions becomes a weapon turned against you. And let's not forget the physical invasion. Some parents have come home to find personal items broken, rearranged, or even missing. Jewelry disappears. Important documents get moved. Medications tampered with. And when you ask what happened, it was always like that. You must have misplaced it. Gaslighting, plain and simple. This kind of behavior doesn't just cross boundaries, it shatters them. It sends the message that your thoughts, your feelings, your possessions, your space, none of it is safe. None of it is yours. It leaves you feeling like a guest in your own life. If you've ever caught your child going through your things and they laughed it off, or got angry at you for asking, please know, that is not normal. That is not okay. Your home, your privacy, your peace of mind. These are sacred. And no matter how old your child is, they are not entitled to take those things from you. And if any of this is resonating with you, if you're sitting there thinking, yes, this is what's been happening in my life, then I want you to take a deep breath with me right now. Just one moment of stillness. Because here's the truth. You are not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You are not overreacting. You are noticing what is real, and you're finally naming it. That kind of awareness, that is strength. That is the first step toward reclaiming your peace. You don't have to tolerate behavior that chips away at your dignity just because the person doing it is your child. Love doesn't mean losing yourself. It doesn't mean locking your bedroom door at night or hiding your passwords or shrinking yourself so they won't explode. It means boundaries. It means respect. And sometimes it means seeing through the illusion of who we hoped they'd become and accepting the reality of who they are right now. Now that we've opened this door and looked at the first signs of what they do when no one's watching, let's keep walking forward. Because once we start seeing clearly, the path to healing becomes just a little less foggy. When someone shows you who they are in the silence, believe them. It's often in those quiet, unobserved moments, when the phones aren't ringing, when the door has closed, that the truth rises to the surface. And for many parents dealing with emotionally manipulative or self-absorbed adult children, the quiet reveals far more than the chaos ever could. Now, let's keep going. Because when a deeply self-centered adult child is left on their own, the story doesn't end with boundary crossing or endless scrolling. There's more happening beneath the surface, and for many parents, this is the most painful part to face. They talk, a lot, but not to you. Instead, they pick up the phone and start spreading stories, half-truths, exaggerations, and sometimes outright lies, to cousins, old friends, family members who don't live nearby, neighbors, anyone who will listen. And the target of those stories? It's usually you. They paint themselves as the victim. My mom is losing her mind. My dad's impossible to live with. They're making up problems just to control me. And while you're at home, doing your best to stay calm and hold your household together, they're out there slowly tearing your reputation apart. This kind of behavior is often called a smear campaign. But to you, it might just feel like betrayal. You might get strange looks from relatives at gatherings, cold shoulders from people who used to be warm, and you may not even know why, until one day, someone finally slips up and says, "Well, that's not what your child told us." It hits like a punch to the chest. Because for decades you've stood by this child. You've protected them, made sacrifices for them, lost sleep, spent money you didn't have, put your own dreams on hold. And now, they're turning people against you, making you look unstable, ungrateful, even cruel. Why would they do this? Because in their eyes, you're no longer giving them what they want. So now, you're a threat. And when they feel threatened, they rewrite the story so they come out looking like the hero or the victim. Either way, they have to be the center of it all. That false narrative gives them something they crave deeply: sympathy, attention, and a fresh supply of people who will praise them, believe them, and take their side. They collect these people like trophies, what some call flying monkeys, and use them to keep the cycle going. The saddest part is that many parents don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. Until relationships start to break down, until trust is lost, until people stop calling, stop visiting, stop believing in you. But here's the truth, and I want you to hold on to this. The people who know your heart, the people who have seen your loyalty, your sacrifice, your love, they are not so easily fooled. Lies have short legs. Truth eventually stands. And even when the damage feels permanent, it's never too late to reclaim your name, your peace, and your voice. Let's keep going. Because if they don't get what they're looking for from the outside world, there's one place a deeply self-focused adult child will almost always turn to: the past. Old relationships. When someone like this feels ignored or unseen, they often begin rummaging through old friendships and past partners. People they once hurt, took advantage of, or walked away from. And almost without fail, they resurface. Just checking in. I was thinking about you. Remember how close we used to be? And it's never really about reconnection, it's about convenience. They remember who used to fall for their stories, who used to praise them, who used to rescue them when things fell apart. So they knock on that door again, not because they've changed, but because they need something. It might be emotional comfort, a place to stay, money, attention, or just someone who will listen while they spin another tale of how unfair life has been to them. Some even go as far as reigniting toxic relationships just to avoid feeling alone. And if you're their parent watching this happen, it's heartbreaking. Because you know how much damage those old relationships caused. You might have seen the tears, the drama, the fights. You might have even helped clean up the aftermath. And now here they go again, walking back into the same fire, dragging others with them, including you. When that door swings open to the past, it often leads to more manipulation, more drama, and more confusion. And yet, they do it over and over again. Because what they're really chasing isn't love. It's validation. A temporary fix for a much deeper wound. And sometimes, when no one answers their messages, when their stories stop working, when the past no longer picks up the phone, they don't stop. They just sink even lower. They look for escape in the darkest corners. For some, that means excessive drinking or drug use. For others, it's losing themselves in a fantasy world. Hours of online videos, adult content, or digital distractions that feed their imagination but starve their soul. They retreat into screens, into substances, into anything that lets them disconnect from reality. Because reality feels too raw, too exposed, too vulnerable. And the more they disconnect, the harder it is to reach them. As a parent, this may be the most difficult thing to witness. You want to help. You want to bring them back. You want to say, just stop. I'm here. Let's talk. Let's fix this. But often, they don't want real help. They want escape. They want to silence the voice inside that reminds them they're not who they pretend to be. That shame runs deep, and instead of healing it, they drown it. And the pain rolls downhill, toward you. Maybe you've gotten that phone call late at night, slurred speech, angry words, or empty promises. Maybe they said awful things one moment and begged for love the next. You hang up feeling sick, confused, heartbroken. And maybe part of you still hopes they'll come around, that something will change. Let me say this clearly, none of this is your fault. You did not create the emotional wounds they refuse to heal. You are not responsible for the choices they continue to make. Love does not mean becoming their life raft every time they jump into deep water. Love can be strong. Love can say no more. Love can build a fence when the garden of your life is being trampled. You can still care. You can still hope. But you do not have to be their escape route. You can reclaim your time, your space, your peace. Because the truth is, you've already given so much. And now it might be time to start giving to yourself. There's a moment in life, usually after 60, sometimes even later, when your soul begins asking different questions. Not, what did I do wrong, but, what do I need now? Not, how can I fix them? But, how can I take care of me? And if you've lived with the emotional storm that comes from having a self-centered, emotionally draining child, you've likely spent years putting your own needs last, waiting for the child to come around, believing, hoping, sacrificing. And still, they don't change. They leave you exhausted, anxious, or ashamed, sometimes without even raising their voice. But let's make one thing clear. What you've lived through matters, and your peace matters too. We've talked about how these children seek validation online, how they invade your privacy, how they spin lies and gossip, and how they chase comfort from the past. But there's something even deeper. Something that ties all of this together. When left to themselves, when there's no one around to applaud or please or manipulate, some of these children collapse inward. And in that collapse, instead of facing their true self, They escape into addictions, fantasies, and altered realities. It may look like spending hours lost in their phones, or getting high, or drinking until the night disappears, or even disappearing into adult content or virtual spaces that have nothing to do with human connection and everything to do with emotional escape. They chase stimulation, not meaning, noise, not truth. And they will avoid sitting with their own thoughts at all costs because beneath the surface, there's shame. And shame is the one thing they cannot tolerate. But here's the painful twist. Instead of taking responsibility for that shame, they push it onto the people closest to them. Often, that's you. You get blamed for things that happened decades ago. You get scolded for boundaries you didn't cross. You're told you're too controlling, too needy, too old-fashioned, when all you've done is try to love them the best way you knew how. And if you ever try to speak up, if you say, "I don't deserve this," or "that's not true," they might turn cold, distant, even vicious. You'll see the side of them you never imagined your child could have. And that's when it becomes clear. This isn't about parenting anymore. This is about patterns they refuse to face. You're not crazy for noticing this. You're not ungrateful. You're not overreacting. You're waking up. And waking up, especially later in life, is one of the bravest things you can do. Because here's the truth that doesn't get said enough. Just because someone is your child doesn't mean they get a free pass to hurt you. Your age, your wisdom, your presence in this world, it deserves respect. It deserves peace. It deserves warmth. You may not be able to change your child, but you can change the story from this moment forward. You can decide to stop apologizing for things you didn't do. You can choose to stop opening the door to someone who walks in just to trample your heart. You can take back your space, your routines, your voice. And that is not giving up. That is loving wisely. Some people say, "But isn't that cruel? Isn't it unloving to let go?" And the answer is no. Not if letting go is what protects your well-being. Letting go doesn't mean hating them. It means loving yourself enough not to be their emotional punching bag. It means seeing reality clearly. It means choosing healing over hoping for a version of them that may never exist. And it also means opening up to a new kind of life. One where your home is your sanctuary. One where your phone doesn't bring fear. One where you sleep peacefully because no one is disrupting your rhythm with drama, demands, or shame. You deserve that. You've earned that. In fact, many people who go through this kind of awakening in their 60s, 70s, or beyond often say something beautiful. "I didn't realize how heavy the relationship was until I finally set it down." And that freedom, that lightness, that's the beginning of a new chapter. It might include building new friendships, picking up old hobbies, or even just enjoying a quiet cup of tea without guilt. It might mean reading again, gardening, traveling, volunteering, or finally investing your time in people who see your worth and treat you with kindness. You don't need to explain your peace to anyone. You don't need permission to protect your joy. You don't need your child's approval to live a full, happy life. You just need courage, and that courage lives inside you, even if it's been quiet for a while. So if any part of today's conversation spoke to you, I invite you to do one small thing, just for yourself. Write a letter you never send. Go for a walk where no one interrupts. Delete a number you no longer need. Speak the truth out loud, even if it's just in your living room. Say, "I deserve better." And then, breathe. You are not alone in this. So many others in our strong elderly life community have faced this very same heartache. And together we're learning that growing older doesn't mean giving up. It means finally standing tall in who we are. If this message gave you strength, comfort, or even just a bit of clarity, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. And someone else out there may need your words more than you know. And if you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Here at Strong Elderly Life, we're building a community of strength, self-respect, and healing for those in the later stages of life, but still full of heart and wisdom. We talk about boundaries, about energy, about health, about what it means to truly reclaim our time and our worth. So if you're ready to keep walking this path, we'll be right here with you. Here's to living your best, most peaceful and authentic life, at any age. You've still got time. You've still got choice. And most importantly, you've still got you.